Regarding the Mumbai attack. ZAID Hamid, as you all know, our defense and strategic analyst is our guest, and basically this dossier is his baby. Welcome to the show. Rather, we should both welcome each other. ZAID Hamid, I want to ask you a couple of very basic questions about this entire 96-97 pages of this dossier. November 12, 2008. I would like you to start off from there.
Faisal, before we start with this timeline, I would like to make certain categoric statements. This is for the first time we are doing this Mumbai analysis, expose of the Mumbai events in English. And there's a reason for this. We want the world to know what is actually happening in India. Right now, behind the facade of a shining India, there's a battle going on within the Indian society for the hearts, mind, and very soul of the Indian Federation. Okay. The Indian Federation is on the brink of being taken over by a fascist Zionist ideology of Hindutva or Hindu fascists. The nationalist Indians, the more secular Indians, those who are resisting this fascist ideology of Hindutva or Hindu Zionists, are actually losing this war now. And what is actually happening in India is that these fascists are now in such a powerful position that they are actually controlling the military, they are controlling the politics and the media, and now even the Indian nuclear weapons are in control of the Indian fascists. The biggest threat to the world in the 21st century would be if those perpetrators of the violence against, those who believe in violence against minorities, those who believe in violence against the untouchables, those who believe in the superior ideology of Hindu supremacy, if they control the federation, if they control the nuclear weapons of the Indian state,
the world is no more a safer place to live.
The world would not be a safer place. And this has actually happened in India already. See, what is happening in Pakistan is, for example, the state of Pakistan is fighting the religious extremism. In India, it's the religious extremists who have taken over the state already. And this Mumbai thing is perhaps the most glaring example of the fact that Indian Federation has now succumbed to the pressures of the fascist Hindu ideology. I'll tell you something very interesting before we come to the Mumbai thing, as you said of the timeline. You see, the Mumbai thing happened on 27th, 28th of November last year. And before that, for quite some time, a massive wave of terrorism was going on in India. Violence against Sikhs, violence against the Christians, violence against Muslims, violence
non-Hindus basically.
Non-Hindus and minorities, even the Hindu minorities of Dalits and Shudras who are untouchables within the Indian society itself. In the 21st century, it is almost unthinkable to assume that the biggest so-called democracy of the world has got hundreds of millions of people who cannot be touched, who cannot sit next to the upper caste, who cannot eat with them, who cannot be in their company.
Untouchables, basically. That's what they believe in, yeah?
The untouchables. So the violence within the Indian society has been intense. For the last so many years, the Indian fascists have been waging a terror campaign within India and blaming it on Muslims. But in the early weeks of November last year, what actually happened was that a very fine Indian police officer, Hemant Kurkure, he was investigating certain terrorist acts in India, and suddenly he stumbled upon a massive cartel of fascists who was actually waging a terror campaign in the Indian Federation.
Like, were these people from the Indian military?
One of them was a serving colonel of the Indian military intelligence. And along with him, the Indian fascist organizations like RSS, Bajrang Dal, BJP, and all their cadre, one after another, were being exposed by Kurkure. And he was arrested. In fact, Colonel Prohit, the Indian military intelligence officer, was actually captured. And this was a bombshell for the fascists in India, because that made the headlines, that made the biggest of the stories. And previously, a few years back, there was a bomb explosion in a Samjhauta Express train. It's the train which runs between Pakistan and India. And an explosion took place which killed dozens of Pakistanis primarily.
Mostly about 70, 75
and
Muslims.
The allegations were levied against Jamaat-ul-Dawa or Lashkar-e-Taiba or against Pakistan for carrying out that carnage. It was later found out this Colonel Prohit, who was arrested by the anti-terrorism police,
was the mastermind
behind it. He provided the RDX from the military depots, from the military stores. And the whole nexus of Zionists was falling apart. One after another, they were being caught. This was happening in the first quarter of the month of November. By 12th of November, 13th, 14th, 15th, if you see the timeline, which we have documented very categorically in this dossier.
And we'll talk about it in detail, yes.
And you will be shocked and surprised to know that practically the entire Indian...
Page 22.
I'll come to this.
Yeah.
Yeah. On the November of 12th, one of their gurus was captured. On November 13th, Gujarat police arrested a woman. November 14th, Colonel Prohit was captured. November 15th, Indian media was littered with news.
More arrests of Hindu
that more of them, the entire gang was being captured. And very interestingly, on November 24th, this is something that you need to note.
See, it also says Indian media reported that Hindu extremists involved in Maligan blast may also be behind Ajmer and Samjhauta Express blast.
See, this is what was happening.
NDTV I'm talking about.
The entire Indian media was shocked. The entire Indian nation was surprised and beyond belief for them that the entire Indian establishment, the military intelligence, their hardcore RSS were involved in every act of terror which was unfolding now. So the police officer who was investigating that, he was receiving death threats from these fascists. Colonel Prohit's arrest particularly created an urgency within these fascists.
That his home will be blown off or something like that.
To eliminate Kurkure. Yeah. And on November 24th, Indian media reported that he has been receiving death threats. His family knew about it, his friends knew about it. And he
anonymous scholar who used a public phone call office to contact the Pune police threatened to blow up the residence of Mumbai anti-terrorism squad chief Hemant Karkare within a couple of days.
That is true.
A top official.
On November 24th, he received death threats, and on November 27th, he was assassinated in so-called Mumbai drama. So what was actually happening in India was that primarily, let me make it very simple for you to understand. Basically, it was a fight between the Indian military intelligence, RSS, and Indian research and analysis wing, they're in secret service, versus the Indian police. The good guys in the Indian
anti-terrorist squad, basically.
Exactly. The good guys within the Indian police, the anti-terror squad, was actually, without realizing that they had confronted, they had stumbled upon the most massive terror network in India being run by the Indian military intelligence, hands in glove with RAW, Research and Analysis Wing. Now, this was the reason, the fact that in November, one after another, their entire cadre was being arrested by Kurkure, it created an urgency within the Indian security establishment to stage a drama. What benefit would this give? For example, the first thing what happened was, by staging this Mumbai drama, that entire attention of the world turned away from these Hindu fascists, Hindu Zionists towards Pakistan.
Yep.
Second thing, the most important of them was, under the cover of this facade, under the cover of this mayhem, they were able to assassinate Kurkure and his entire team. And within 15 minutes,
first 15 exactly,
15 minutes of this drama,
and they were shot in the back.
They were shot in the back, and very fascinatingly, Kurkure was shot with 9mm pistols. The pistols that those terrorists were not carrying, the weapons those terrorists did not have, and these pistols were used by Indian police. Now,
so basically, the guns which actually
assassinated the police officer were not with the terrorists, were not with the militants.
Because they had that 30 bow.
They had 9mm. 30 caliber pistols, which were .30, not 9mm. And anybody who knows guns know .30 is not 9mm. Now, interestingly, so Indians had to justify this also. So when they create a dossier against Pakistan, they show the picture of a .30 caliber pistol, but then they write underneath it's a 9mm. It's like showing a 155mm howitzer and saying it's an 8-inch mortar. Even an idiot can see they're trying to make a fool out of the word, you see. So the fact is that once this, what we are saying here is that not just us, the Western media and some of the finest Indian analysts, some of the finest and brave Indian journalists have written this categorically, that this Mumbai